Welcome to the 2:30 p.m. session talk here in the Bring It On track at ShmooCon2025. If you've been around for a little bit, you probably know Russ. So we're super excited to welcome him for this talk on deception and ops planning frameworks, and handing it off to you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Good evening.
howdy do, everyone. My name's Russ, and I'm here to talk to you about deceptions and operations planning. I have the obligatory, this is not my fault slide. This is yours. You came here. That was your choice. I'm sorry. I can't help you. However, I am also not representing anyone who I used to work for or currently work for. It's just me. And I'm not going to teach you any secret skills or dance moves or handshakes unless y'all want me to do this through erotic interpretive dance. All right. Bonus material at the end of the DVD. So this would not be a deception talk without the obligatory tribute to Sun Tzu. So let's get that behind us. Let's just jump into kind of where we are as an industry and how we started. For those who have been around for quite some time, we all remember the Rainbow books written by our friends down up north from here, south from me. But they kind of set the cornerstone of a lot of the things that we understand and practice as our day-to-day controls that we take for granted nowadays. Everything from log access and controls and analysis, role-based access control, all that sort of stuff. And even some of these concepts have been rolled into current certifications that carry some weight, some that don't, some get jeered at, who cares? But it's establishment, it's cornerstone material. And it's been around for quite some frickin' time, right? But it is the year 2025 of our Shmoo, and it's just not working that well. And ransomware attacks are still at an all-time high. Breach notification settlements are more common than your warranty renewal notification requests. Even on the more extreme side of things, there are companies who just buy stuff to implement it, to do a checkbox and do like the cargo cult mentality of purchasing and solution implementations. They don't understand what they're actually doing. And then last, but there is external assistance available, but it's not always reliable or consistent in the industry at large, which is why we keep hearing the same songs over and over again. Well, going back to the original Rainbow series books, there's one in the back called the Little Pink Book. And in the Little Pink Book, it even states and has some subjects in the chapters that discuss deception, operation, plannings, and design, but from a technical perspective, everything about taking a look at how the CPU architecture, the memory architecture is working to do deception operations against adversaries inside the infrastructure, but also to tell if something hinky is going on against your own infrastructure. So everything, these are some of the high-level subjects that are in there. But there's, that book is called the NCSE TG 030. It's a Guide to Understanding Covert Channels Analysis of Trusted Systems. And not everyone's really into policy book reads. You could read this at your own leisure, at your own time, but it's very informative and really has a lot of the cornerstone knowledge and tool chains that we now see as deception operation tools and practices as a practice. But it's still not all that great. The guide is a little over 21 years old. It's another thing to kind of weirdly think about. There are some tools that are in the open source community that are of drinking age, and I take that for what you will. But the positives of it is, yeah, it's still useful. Deception operations are useful to conduct, but you have to have a robust infrastructure. You have to know the cadence. You have to have a lot of that other foundational stuff in play. If you do have that stuff in play and you decide to run a deception operation, it is a strong signal that something hinky is going on in your infrastructure. If you happen to have a threat intelligence team, this is a massive force multiplier for them because, for instance, like in Deviant's previous discussion, one of the safes has a panic switch sort of mechanism in it. If that alarm goes off, you know something like a duress switch. If something goes off with a duress switch, you know something's bad as a defender. Well, Unfortunately, not a lot of places get the fundamentals right even today, which is why it kind of feels a little bit lonely in the room when it's just like you and the electrical outlet at the party and no one else is really trying to do the right thing. But when it comes into some of these companies that are trying to roll out deception tooling and tradecraft and solutions, they're there to sell a product. They're there to get you on as a customer. They may not be really thinking about what it takes to develop, enact, and roll out an actual deception operation. So what ends up happening for the engineers is that they get frustrated. It becomes another IDS that's just spamming them with noise, and they have to write a report about this thing, and it's distracting. It can become very, very distracting if you don't do it right. So let's talk about what goes into a punch list. First, as I've stressed, you have to know your infrastructure. You have to have a handle of your inventory, your log analysis, and your cadence. But you also have to think that a deception operation is not a honeypot. It is more than a honeypot. It is a strategy that you have to think about and implement very decisively and willful intent. You have to define what your problem is. What type of deception operation are you trying to develop? Who is it you're trying to deceive and why? For how long? How much money and energy are you willing to put into this? So as far as the folks of who you're trying to deceive, are you trying to go like, crazy and deceive a nation state who has resources that you don't? Or are you just trying to protect yourself against insider threats from the company or other forms of espionage or whatnot? You got to really define who you're going to try to deceive. Now, how long is this going to be running for? What's your backstoppage? How in-depth are you going to go into this? Does this need to run for hours, days, or weeks, years? Do you need to form a company, an LLC, create additional paperwork for this entity that is going to be adjacent or a part of an institution for your deception operations? Now, how complex are you going to make this is another one. Again, this is a time and commitment type of question. Is your goal to just slow them down and let them just like whittle through so you can study them? Or are you trying to thwart them and completely keep them from getting to the crown jewels? A question that no one asks is, okay, you're done with the deception operation. What do you do? How do you dismantle it? How do you walk away from it without tipping off to the adversary that you were running a deception operation? And then on the right-hand side of the slide deck, I talk a little bit about the different types of actors and the complexities associated with them and the amount of commitment, and I'm serious on the amount of commitment that you have to have in order to do these sort of things. And, well, that is the overall set of questions that you need to start thinking about if this is something that you want to do. So let's talk about a practical exercise of this particular set of questions and a framework that was derived out of that through a practical exercise. So for background, I've done some things in my life that did a lot of deception operations plannings and responses and such, and then I left that life to do other things. And along the ways in the journey, I was fortunate enough that my wife and I purchased about 140 acres of land, which was great. I love the woods. I need to get out, touch grass, and do rust stuff in the wild. And but the problem that I quickly found out as a first-time landowner is that because it had been abandoned for 30 to 40 years, it was not posted, meaning trespassers were abundant. There were people who were hiking on it for like day hikers. They weren't meaning to do anything malicious. There were people who were going on and shooting. You don't want that happening in your backyard. And there were also trespassers who were hunting, which is a thing that I do, but I don't want them hunting on my land without my permission because it's also a safety thing as well. Then we also had a squatter. Someone was living on it. So we had to manage that person off. And because you had all these things going on, it still kind of is generally trashed up, and we're working getting the garbage off. Like even the township illegally dumped in a corner in it because who was going to report it? So I got them to clean up that mess. But anyways, at the end of the day, all these people in the area, right or wrong, had the idea that this was an extension of their backyard. They had as much right and access to it as I did as the owner. Well, I needed to establish new rules, mostly to be safe for everyone, but also it's mine, motherfuckers. So anyways, I started doing what I would describe as the cybersecurity 101 playbook. Put locks on the gates, put cameras in various places. I even did patrolling with friends, and we looked like crazy woods people, and I've got a fun story about a father who rolled up on it with his quad and his son, and we come running out of the woods with rifles, and it scared the hell out of him. It took him about 4 or 5 tries to enter my phone number correctly because he was so scared, but his kid was having this shit-eating grin, like, Dad got busted. But at the end of the day, like when you do the cybersecurity 101 stuff, it'll solve most of your problems, but if you do it well, it'll get you to a point. And doing all those things, I was able to catch audio of people and their voices and time who was coming back over and over and do direct interdictions with them. But it still wasn't perfect. I still had problems. Because I was, I just want to make sure I did, yep. Because I love policy guides, I was reminded of the 1-16.00 DOJ policy on use of force, meaning you increment the amount of use of force to match the threat of the adversary in front of you to deal with it. So still had problems. So I started rolling out technical solutions. I put surveillance cameras up. I have 2 pineapples from Hack5 that are up there. I did this spooky solution stuff. So I have signs that say, danger, you're downrange of an active firing range. And I have friends from law enforcement that'll go up and just make noise for me to kind of help subtly reinforce that that is a case. I also turkey hunt up there. And one of the things about turkey hunting in that state is you don't have to wear orange. So I go full-blown like ninja mode in the woods. And I've had a person walk by and I go, hello. And they don't like that. But it just kind of kept going. Other problems, like the bottom left picture is a family that just didn't care and they rolled on and they got interdicted by a friend and I at gunpoint because they tried to harm us. And we had to walk that back. That tree with the bark blown off, someone shot at me and they struck the tree about 15 feet away from me. That's an example of a deer stand that someone had erected on it. And then in the bottom right-hand picture is a family whose vehicle drove over elements in the property, threw up every single color of fluid that would be scraped from the undercarriage chassis, damaging the vehicle. But we got their license plate number. They were shooting on the property in a haphazard way, but the police got involved. But I still just wasn't reaching enough of them to like, I am the crazy new neighbor. You're going to have to deal with me. Now, my neighbors know who I am, know what I was, but I'm still that crazy frickin' neighbor that does spooky, weird science experiments on the roof of a garage. Like I was putting a GOES weather satellite receiver on the roof of the garage, and the neighbor was walking the dog. He's like, Russ, what are you doing? Another weather experiment. Okay, hey, just another thing. So I had to come up with a new plan because clearly things weren't perfect, and I was still having issues and problems up there. So I reflected on my life and created... I reflected on my life and decided to implement a deception operation. And so I created a company called the Rattlesnake Sanctuary. It's the word of the day is rattlesnake. All right. So I made these signs in my driveway. Again, the neighbors kind of got freaked out because I am that neighbor, and now my wife can attest that at the gathering of families are like, what the hell is he up to? Is he actually breeding rattlesnakes? I was like, no. I love this. And so let's go through that punch list, that rubric. I had to know my infrastructure. In this case, I had to really understand the land. I walked it a bunch of times. I posted it. I purple painted it. I did all those things. Another friend from the community helped me procure a buttload of fiber optic cable, so I have about now 2 miles of fiber optic cable that I've deployed across the property. So I had to do timing of ingress and egress of folks to figure out when they were coming. Well, Facebook actually was good for something. I bought an ad to be able to block out during the summer a part of it. It wasn't too terribly expensive, but I started getting a list of not who was coming on, but when people were coming on, because they'd take their mobile devices and listen to audiobooks and stuff, and it was beaconing out to the internet. Cool. Then I started running pineapples up there in order to collect additional SIGINT off of people who were coming by. And this is how I probably screwed up with this one. There was a teenage couple that came on. I know how long it takes to get from gate to gate. They left within time. Then they come back. They hang out a little bit longer. They're touching the pineapple. That's not a metaphor. They probably were. I take the SSID of the devices that were being beaconed. I see one of them is for a neighbor's house right behind me because Wiggle is awesome, and I wardrobe that whole area. And yeah, shout out to those folks. And the address had serendipitously a business tied to it, so I look it up. There's a phone number. I call the number. This guy answers. I say, like, are you responsible for one of these two young adults on the property? And he confirmed as yes, his daughter was up there, and said, hey, she's up there with a young fellow, and they've been there a while. You have my permission to go get them. They do. They retrieve them. This was Father's Day, 2 years ago, I believe, Beth? And we were all out, like, at a friend's, like, doing a dinner with friends, and I'm, like, having to get out to play phone tag with this guy. And eventually he calls me back. He says, someone wants to apologize. He thanked me, but someone wants to apologize to you, and she wasn't too terribly pleased. So I have this fear in my head that while I may have won the war, I created my version of Osama bin Laden for 15 years from now. But then, so like you have to understand who your adversaries are. So I started making friends with the neighbors and things were great. But then who am I deceiving? People who are potentially dangerous. Like I mentioned, I've been shot at up there. I had poachers try to run over one of my friends. We interdicted at gunpoint, and that totally de-escalated that. He was scared. But also, like, let's keep moving through the rubric. How long do I have to run this for? At the time, I thought indefinitely. I'm feeling better about it now, which is why we're talking about it. My goal is to ultimately collect as much information about the trespassers that are up there, and then, when warranted, pass it on to law enforcement for them to do their job. What am I going to do when I'm done? This stuff. I'm going to start recruiting additional landowners who may want to participate as well, and I'll get to that later. All the trespassers, they're all unsubs. I don't know who they are, what they're doing. Some are locals in the area, some were not. They were like the family that was shooting, they were not local. They always seem to have some form of electronic device on them. That's their fault. But they know that they're not supposed to be there, so they're on edge. And the people who have come to understand me had a healthy fear of running into me. They know that I'm a nut and will, like, enforce rules, but they also know I'm not there all the time. And so they're wandering around in the woods with wildlife as well, and there's like a bit of an emotional gamble going on in their head. Like the hairs aren't fully raised, but they're hypersensitive. It's not totally relaxing. So what else is in the woods? Well, coyotes. It's 24-season hunting season year-round for coyotes. So one of the folks I caught up there with a gun at night was that he had the gun because in case of coyotes. I'm like, all right, well, that's not a problem. Bears, well, I had my first bear contact this last deer season. That was scary, but they mostly leave you alone. Not so much about ticks, but ultimately the last word, rattlesnakes. There we go. No one likes rattlesnakes up there. And it turns out that the timber rattler, got you. The timber rattler is a protected species in Pennsylvania. So that just kind of worked out for me. So I made these signs, and Dragorn helped make these QR codes that hang out on the bottom of them. And so I created Con-Op Rattlesnake. So the authenticity, I created an LLC. It's a real company. It exists. There's a website, and I have these signs. The signs are mounted on the inside of the property, about 75 to 100 feet, so you're trespassing at this particular point. Yes, it did creep out my neighbors when they first saw it. I had to explain to them, like, no, this is not for you. This is for the other people who are being jerks to me right now. But it turned, I'm playing an emotional game with the people who are trespassing. They know they're not supposed to be there. They're kind of on edge. They've heard stories. And I'm doing a little bit of social engineering on that weakened emotional state. Because if you're walking around the woods and you see a sign that looks like it's made by a Parks and Recs sort of thing, and there's a QR code hanging from it, curiosity will usually get the hold of you. And it has twice. So I put a QR code on the bottom that once you boop it, you go through a cattle chute. So what is the cattle chute? It directs you to two websites initially, one on IPv4 and one on IPv6. It does some Java stuff, collects some information off of you. It gets me information about you that's useful for law enforcement to do a 2703D or admin subpoena or whatever is needed in order to then follow up with that later interdiction. And then, like, I specifically log TCP source port information, which law enforcement requires in order to be able to deal with carrier grade NAT. But also for myself, I get a text message that you're there real time. So I get, again, time and date and notifications. So this is a quick example of the website. It says, we're a collective of landowners who love rattlesnakes. And this will help you learn more about the animals and help us protect them and yada, yada, yada. And there's a bad dad joke in the middle of it. But when I talked to an attorney about this, because you should always talk to an attorney if you're going to do a deception operation, and I was doing collections off of people's devices, I had to have somewhere on the website a notice that I was doing this. Now, it's not going to probably show up real well for you on the display, but in the lower right-hand corner, there's a pi symbol. If you click that pi symbol, it then discloses the intent that, yep, you found this page, good for you. The cold hard truth is, yep, while we do like rattlesnakes, but the purpose of the site is to find, track, and identify trespassers. All righty. So what do you do when you're done? Since I'm thinking about actually closing up the LLC because it's more of an administrative burden to file like taxes that say I've done nothing with this. No. But there were two people who booped the code, passed it on to the police, and they did their knock and talk and said, like, stop, like, you're not welcome there. He has his phone number there to call and reach out. I'm not the Grinch. If you call and I know you're there, I do have other people that go up and hunt and shoot and things like that. It's a safety thing. So they ended up conceding. And then there's some video of people walking up to seeing the sign and just going, nope, and then turning around and walking away. The goal was met. So if you have land or know someone who has land and who wants to participate in this deception operation, we are doing signups. So, but also at the same time, it ain't going to be perfect either. This fella sailed past all the signs, just kept going, and I'm not sure if the audio is going to play or not, but he gets to about there, and he's going to stop and look around because in the audio I go, good morning. And like he's starting to look around in the woods as to like where this disembodied voice of the Wizard of Oz came from. And yeah, he goes, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. So, and that's the goal. Be creepy enough that, you know, you just kind of catch them as they roll. And it's been approximately 155 days since the last trespasser, which was him. So it's working for the most part. It's not going to be perfect. All righty. So in conclusion, you're going to have to commit to do these things. This is not a piece of software or hardware that you could just buy from a vendor and implement and roll out. AI is not going to make it better. I guarantee that. It is not, it is not a honeypot. This is different from a honeypot. This is, if someone goes to the website or does like any kind of search for rattlesnake sanctuary, it's going to check out. It's backstopped. So you got to make sure that you plan these things and scope them out appropriately to make sure that you can pull back from them when you're done, map out when things go sideways, like, hey, that guy showed up and you just kind of ignored all the traps. Yeah, another trap I thought about doing is having like coffee tins with BBs and a spinner and a motion detector that I'd bury at various points on the trail. But you're going to have to make sure that your infrastructure is as healthy as it can be. So like I had to make sure I did all the 101 stuff the best way I could do and that it was effective. If you don't do 101 stuff, this is going to make your life worse. You have to invest to do these things. This was a time sink for me. I wish I didn't have to do this, but at the end, I was committed because I'm crazy. And yeah, I have a PhD and all that proves it's not that I'm smart, it's I'm a stubborn motherfucker. That's all that means. Anyone who has a PhD is stubborn. Do not piss them off. So I don't know if we have any time for questions, but if you have questions, here's how you can get a hold of me. I am doing, legitimately, I think I have about 4 or 5 other properties signed up who are participating in this as well. One who was having a meth head trespasser routinely show up. That person's gone. They don't want rattlesnakes to be in their bags. I love that. Great use of seeds. And if there are no questions, then I'm at time. Perfect. Fire questions there, and otherwise I'll be wandering around, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Thank you all kindly.